Class is now in session. Join the podcast mogul Phil Better as he gives you tips, techniques, and strategies to grow and monetize your podcast. Live in his Facebook group, The Better Method of Daily Audience Growth for Independent Podcasters. Learn from him and his special guests as they help you become the next podcast superstar. Now, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, podcasters of all ages, put your hands together for your host, Phil Better.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Invest in Yourself, the podcast series episode Unlocking the Secrets to Powerful Methods to Skyrocket your podcast subscribers using, of course, Facebook groups. If you are here watching live, let me know in the comments down below, or if you're watching the replay, make sure you use that hashtag #ReplayGang. I want to thank everybody who is here watching live. You guys make it always worthwhile, and I am incredibly thankful for you guys to be here. Now, as you may know, last week we talked about how you can... What did we talk about last week? Yes, our Facebook cover art, so that you can make it even better. You saw, if you were part of the email, the great artwork that was done by our good friend Tim Biesiegel, and of course you saw the work that I did, as well as all the other members of the group who have posted inside the chats. Now, today we're going to talk about Facebook groups. Facebook groups are the purest form of organic marketing you can do. And now, why is that? Because Facebook groups are the key place where your fandom, your listeners congregate. But now, how do you use those Facebook groups to take your podcast to the next level without getting in trouble or having a bad group? Now, the first way is I learned from the guys over at Client and Communities. Now, I'm just going to get into their group and I'm going to show you it. So give me a second here. I'm going to share my screen with you guys so that you guys can see it. Boom. So here you go. So this is a group that's specifically for coaches, consultants, and agencies, right? It's Clients and Communities. That's the name of their group, their business, daily client acquisition for high ticket coaches. And this is great because their group is centered around coaching, around getting people to join their group. They got this group Let's see, how many members do they currently have in this group? Look at that. 53, nearly 54,000 members. And you know how they did this? They created a very interesting group, but they also made sure that you knew that this is a group that's specific for people. They specifically created the questionnaire, the questions to get in, as well as who should be here. So when you're creating your Facebook group, you should have a Facebook group for your podcast, but it shouldn't be about your podcast. So we're going to take an example of a great Facebook group. So the Weekly Planet is a great podcast, but the Weekly Planet has a group. Where is their group? Hold on. Go into groups. Podmates is one of their groups, but where is it? Oh, it's Planet Broadcasting. There you go, Planet Broadcasting. There is. They're Planet Broadcasting Great Mates Official. This is the side group of the podcast, The Weekly Planet. Now, if you look at their members, they have 14, okay? Just in this group. But this group discusses everything that's associated with their podcast. Their podcast is pop culture. They go after movies and reviews. And they talk about movies. They talk about a whole bunch of different things, but they made a group because they call their fandom Great Mates, right? So that is so important. You also need to have a term for your members, for your listeners, to create a sense of community. And when you create your Facebook group, you want to make it around that. Planet Broadcasting Great Mates Official, Planet the Weekly Planet, Planet Broadcasting. They kept it on terms, but you can go something as well, like our good friend, the FSF Popcast. They're an amazing amazing podcast. Look, this is how many they just have here, but they have a Facebook group. So let's take a look at their Facebook group. The funny science fiction. Where's it? Hold on, let me go. I usually have them here. Getting all the notifications that I'm live. Where is Tim's group? It usually is here, which really annoys me because I am in his group actively. No, that's the wrong one. I apologize, people. Let's go down. See, even the Planet Broadcasting Great Mates Official, they have this community where they support each other, which is what you want. Here it is, Funny Science Fiction. This is Tim's Funny Science Fiction podcast. Remember that we saw in his page, he only had about 600. But if we look at the group, people, they have over 213,000 members in this Facebook group that is along with their Facebook, their podcast, that is associated. They go live in their podcast. They post memes in their podcast group, right? So that people can grow a part of this. Okay, the Funny Science Fiction, the official Facebook group of the FSF podcast. It's Funny Science Fiction. So people who aren't a fan of the podcast will be like, oh my God, this Facebook group, and they have clearly indicated that it's part of the podcast, part of a podcast. So having your own Facebook group will allow you to funnel people into it because Facebook will promote it when you have a lot of actionable content. So what you want to do is you don't want to make it Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast Facebook group, because that's not going to be interesting to people. However, if I made a how to be an digital entrepreneur for dummies group, there is a potential chance that people will go and join this group because they're like, oh, I want to be a digital entrepreneur and I want to learn from it. So what you want to do is you want to, of course, have a great cover art, just like you saw in the clients and communities. You want a great name. You can make the name that's similar, follows a single trend. Who is it for? What is it they're going to get? So it's for the horror fans that want new movies to watch. Boom, that's what the Facebook group can be. Then what you want is to be very specific about who the group is for and who it's not for. And that way you'll be pushing the right people to your group, inside the group, where you can tell them about your podcast, tell them about your email list, share upcoming information about, the industry or the niche that you are podcasting about. That will allow you to become a better podcaster because you're going to be marketing to people who are already interested in the stuff that you are talking about on your podcast. So this is the best way. You want to funnel people into your podcast group, but you don't want it to be like if it was called just the FSF podcast group, no one's going to be joining it because it's, oh, I have to listen to this podcast. But if you say it's the funny science fiction Facebook group, oh, it's about funny science fiction posts and pictures and memes and stuff like that, more people are going to be joining it, as you saw with the 213,000, almost 214,000 people who have joined this group. They know about this podcast and they'll go listen to this podcast later. Okay, that is one way of using Facebook groups, having your own Facebook groups to funnel potential listeners into your listening funnel, because you can post live recordings or stream recordings into there, or you can tell them about updated news about the podcast, and they're all knowing there as long as you put it all in the contents of the group, right? You don't want to be, if you're a marketing podcast, you don't want to be talking about pop culture unless it's relevant to marketing. Okay, you want to keep that all in the streamline. Now, the second method of using Facebook groups to grow your listeners is, it's a covert method. It's you join groups that are on the subject of your podcast or in your niche. So if we look at it, if we go, since this is a podcast about podcasting, let's find a podcast group. Look, Indie Pods, right? Indie Pods is about independent podcasters. So what we can do is you go through and you look for posts that are talking about a topic that they're asking about, or they have comments about, or it's something that's related to, if they have a question and you're like, oh, that's amazing, that is something that's really interested to you, and you comment on it. Let's go podcast network. Let's see if there's one that we can get with a question. So you see here Ricky featuring acclaimed author. There's people going, oh, upcoming guest ready. There's commenting. Let's see if we can find one that's a question. Here we go. Nope. I apologize. Usually there's more. Sometimes it's hard to find, but you know what? We're going to look for an entrepreneur. Here we go. So let's look at this. Marketing for leaders. And he's doing a marketing thing right now. As you can see, a lot of entrepreneurs have their own Facebook group where they talk about the products and that they sell and change. Let's see here. So you have a gentleman, if your wife ran a business, would you help her? Now you can go in here, if you can support your spouse, there you go. Lots of experts will teach you things that will benefit them. Few will teach them that benefits you, regardless of, in my opinion, what is it that sets apart the ones who truly build legacies versus those? That's a great question. You can jump in and you can answer, right? So for this one, right? I can jump on. I just interviewed a great gentleman by the name of Atlas Armstrong, amazing entrepreneur who's done amazing things with the military and in his business. And one of his things that tells them to build a legacy is when they give to people and don't expect anything in return. And now I can put that there, and then I can grab comments and go, yeah, I had an episode where I talked with Atlas Altman, who is this amazing entrepreneur that went from military leader over into the business world. And this is what he says about, building legacies versus those who are just a flash in the pan. It's about building the brand, building the awareness, this and that. If you're interested, I have an episode on it. You can listen to it. Let me know in comments below. That will allow people to be either say yes and click on your click to say yes, I want to, or respond to you, sorry, and say yes, I want an episode. I would love to hear the episode. Or they'll click over to your profile, and because we set up the profile like we did with the host of Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast, Talk Dirty to Me, the Feel Better Show, and listen on Spotify, they'll be like, oh, this is probably the podcast it is. And they'll go search for your podcast, and then they'll become listeners. All right. So those are the two different ways you can use Facebook groups to funnel listeners into your podcast. You either go into other Facebook groups that are in similar niche of your podcast, and you answer questions, or you provide insight while saying something along the lines of, hey, if you're interested, I have a podcast on this. You don't post your link. You don't spam them. You provide the value. You give without expecting anything in return. And you'll see a lot of people will start giving back to you. Okay. This is one of the best ways I found. By doing this method, I've seen my podcast get an extra 35 downloads. I've attempted it with older episodes to see what is like and what I can get out of it. And I've seen the increase of about 36 additional downloads whenever you do that on some posts. And also if you have an upcoming episode, like, because I schedule my episodes in advance, I interview a lot of people, their episode hasn't come out yet. If that's the case, let's say with the Atlas episode, if it hasn't come out yet, I can say, hey, this episode hasn't released yet. Just an FYI, this is what he said in it, and I'll let you guys know when it releases. Then afterwards, once the episode's released, you go back to that post and you comment, by the way, the episode's released. Let me know if anybody's interested. Everybody who's commented on that will get a notification that someone's posted on that thread, and they'll come back to it. And they'll be like, hey, oh, wow, this person. And then Facebook's going to start pumping it out because they see so many people coming back to it and engaging with it. So Facebook's going to push it out to more people, and there's a chance for more people to see your episode or want to be or inquire about your episode. So those are two secret methods of using Facebook groups to grow your audience, either creating a Facebook group that is an adjoining to your podcast on the topic of your podcast, the niche of your podcast, like the folks over at the FSF Popcast did, or of course, you can see it in the Facebook group for the better method of daily audience growth for independent podcasters, as you all are watching this. If you are, of course, interested in joining my Facebook group, links are in the show notes down below. Of course, it is a pleasure to have you here. To the people watching, thank you again for being here. I love all your faces, and I thank you so much for your questions and comments on this video. I wish you all the best. Remember, if you're watching the replay, hit me up with the hashtag #ReplayGang with any questions you have. And if you're watching live, I thank you oh so much. And as always, remember to invest in yourself.